Today we are looking at Connor McDavid of the Edmonton Oilers. A little different than my usual videos where I look at a defenseman, but today we're going to look at how Boston defended against Connor McDavid. Now I want to preface this video by saying I have never played against McDavid and I can only imagine how hard it would be. And what we see on TV, as difficult as it looks to us, it would look like 10 times harder when you're on the ice with him, just because the speed and the angles, there's so many little details that really good players do that it's really kind of hard to capture from TV. But yeah, let's check it out. I want to see from a defenseman's perspective how the game goes against Connor McDavid. Let's do it. And don't forget to stay till the end. I will give you my full summary of how I thought Boston did against McDavid and some key learning points we can take away from this game. The first noteworthy shift for McDavid from a defensive analysis perspective is this one here. And it's very subtle. So we got McDavid coming down the ice. And we have McAvoy right here in the kind of front of the net. And when you're guarding really good players or defending really good players, the tendency might be to kind of just stick to them the whole time, which is good in some scenarios. But here, McAvoy does the right play. He kind of wants to just defend this area. Because as dangerous as McDavid is, outside of this area, he's not that much of a threat. Obviously more than most players still. But if McAvoy were to chase him behind the net, McDavid's really good at doing little things of creating space for himself. So if McAvoy chased him behind the net, McDavid could have just easily pinched him off and then created space for himself. So sometimes you have to resist the urge to stick directly to these really good players because they have little ways of losing you as a defender. And they sometimes even want you to. It's kind of like in my last video with Seth Jones where he uses the net to lose the defender. Forwards do that to you as well. So McAvoy stays on him. So yeah, now you can go to him. And you don't want to lunge. You want to stay center in your body and just defend his movements. You can't really commit to him very aggressively here. Yeah, you see how McDavid did that? He's just trying to get the defender to bite. So I'll play it one more time. So watch as McAvoy's trailing him. Just watch the little kind of juke that McDavid does. And that's just trying to get the defender to lunge. He's trying to get McAvoy to commit to a side and spin off. Right there. And McAvoy does a good job. He doesn't commit to it. He just keeps his stick out, defending the angle. And yeah, solid shift there for McAvoy defending McDavid. In that last shift, I talked about how McDavid and really good players are really effective at losing their defender with little picks and just using players on the ice to create space for themselves. So this shift is a really good example. So we have McDavid on the draw, nice win. And then he has Zacha on him in front of the net. And just watch here how he loses him. And he's constantly getting the defenders to rotate off and do switches. And the more switches forwards make defensemen do, the higher the likelihood that there's going to be a mishap and you're left undefended. So as defensemen, you really got to communicate well and be really effective in your switches with your teammates. So watch how he loses Zacha. Boom. And he just uses this kind of little pick with Hyman. He's got space. McAvoy does a good job of switching off. And look, he's doing it again. And maybe it is a little bit of a Hyman knowing what's going on as well, but he's using this little pick here. He's getting space again. But Zadorov does a really good job there and identifies the switch. And I think McDavid thought he created space for himself and he ended up getting laid out there pretty good. But yeah, McDavid he's constantly making you switch. And like I said, McAvoy did a good job rotating off and he was communicating if you saw his hand up there. And then Zadorov did a good job identifying the pick and roll kind of thing they were doing. So yeah, that's something you gotta be really careful of with those really good players. Edmonton's on the power play here, and this is just a replay of their eventual goal. And I just like this camera angle a bit better, so I think you guys can see the ice better. And I always say in a breakout, you wanna beat a guy with a pass. It's way more effective, way quicker than you skating it. And even better when you can beat two guys with a pass. So Edmonton has beat these two guys with a pass on the power play. To me, that's already a misstep by Boston. And either that or a really nice play by Edmonton. And Zadorov and McAvoy are already off to a rough start defending the power play. McDavid coming at you with this much speed is what nightmares are made of. So already look at Zadorov's gap. He's in a tough spot. And this is because these guys got caught. Ideally, you should be able to have these guys pressuring and can angle a bit better. So Zadorov basically has to let McDavid just take the zone. So he turns around. He knows he's got to catch up speed. So now Edmonton just got the zone, no problem. I don't like seeing that ever, but it is what it is. They reestablish a nice little box formation. So we're back to a traditional penalty kill setup. So that's good. But my issue here is McDavid gets the puck. And as a defender, I would like to see a bit of a rotation. I'd like to see McAvoy go down and pressure McDavid, and either this guy drop down a bit, cover the slot, just something to not give McDavid this much time. You can't give the best player in the world this much time than he's about to get. I would much rather you pressure him, he moves the puck somewhere else, and someone else has the puck for that long, just not McDavid. But they just leave him here. And when you give him this much time, this happens. So much time. And McAvoy was just kind of defending no one that whole time. Like I said, I would like to see him go down and goal for Edmonton. We're back even strength now. And like I said earlier, those really good players are really good at creating miscommunication amongst the defenders. McDavid does it again. So he gets the puck in the net. See, he's really good at just finding that empty space. So he finds the empty space. He uses the net and loses McAvoy, who was just on him. And now he's behind the net. And look, when a player gets behind the net, you can't really, if he's right in the middle like this, and there's no pressure coming from either side, you can't really commit to a side. You just got to kind of hang out there, which sucks. Gretzky did that a lot too, and really good players use this to their advantage. So McAvoy just kind of has to hang out here. He can't commit. And now we have Ekholm right here. He's pinching down, and McDavid identifies this. And McAvoy makes a bit of a mistake. The winger should be coming down with Ekholm. He should be identifying that his defenseman's pinching, and because that's his guy, right? McAvoy makes a nice little poke check. But you see here, realistically, McDavid is McAvoy's guy. McAvoy's lost him. This guy's out to lunch. He should be on Ekholm right now. Instead, he's covering the defenseman that is swung over from the other side. That is something I'm pretty sure McDavid identifies this miscue going on amongst Boston, and he notices he's got this space. So that's why he's hanging out there. His IQ is just through the roof, and he's able to identify this miscommunication taking place. And now look at him. He's got all this space. Thankfully, a nice little poke check, and they recover. But it just goes to show how important good communication is against players like this. Edmonton's back in the offensive zone here, and it's another McDavid-McAvoy battle. This one goes well for McAvoy, and he does something that's very important for defensemen, especially against really good players, and that's staying between the net and the offensive player. So right now, McAvoy kind of has the puck, but watch what happens. He loses it, and the thing that you got to do is you got to get that body position. You have to get between this guy and the net, and he does that, and you just cannot lose it. So let's let it run here. So he's got to be careful here. He's waiting for this pinch out, but he should realistically be on this side, kind of defending McDavid this way. You cannot be thinking puck first with McDavid 90% of the time. And he kind of is right now. He's hoping for a little pinch out from the puck. But think about this. If the puck popped out here, you're not going to beat McDavid on that first step, and McDavid's going to have this space. So I would like to see McAvoy kind of defending on this side. He gets back in position, and now look at him. He's just stick out, and he's just like lacrosse style holding him there. And this allows him to kind of watch the puck. Yeah, see how he's doing that? And even there, he gave McDavid a little too much space, but yeah, that is how you do it, except for the first part. Nowadays, everyone's doing the power play zone entry where you drop the puck and the back forward comes in with speed. We've all seen enough McDavid highlight reel goals where he does this, breaks in the zone, dekes everyone out, scores. But there's a way to defend this, and there's some disadvantages to this zone entry, and I'm going to show you here. So McDavid getting his speed, and he comes in. So now the disadvantage to this zone entry on the power play is if you look at all the Edmonton forwards, you see all those guys there, they have no speed. They're all flat-footed. So that means the only guy with speed is McDavid. And that, in a way, makes it somewhat like a 1-on-3, 1-on-4. So when you have that scenario, you got to just pressure him, pressure him, pressure him, and you can't back into the zone. You cannot give it to him. A couple of these guys can kind of have that backward speed, but the middle guys here have got to basically lunge at McDavid. Going a little crazy with the drawing, as I tend to do, but watch what Boston does here. They do a good job. So middle guy goes. So these two guys both held up at him. It was mainly Kuraly here who pressured at him, which made McDavid have to cut sideways. And he doesn't really have forwards breaking with speed, so he's kind of on his own here. And that allows the other defender to hold up, and it makes him have to dish. And it avoids those highlight reel goals that we see him kind of go through everyone. And that's how you defend that power play zone entry. McDavid does something on this shift that I always preach to defensemen to do. It really helps you, it really makes you harder to defend against when you do this. So what McDavid's about to do here is rather than just kind of floating to this area, he's going to come at it with speed. He's going to hook in. And I always tell defensemen to do that too. You want to take space when you're up high and hook into it. So watch what McDavid does here. He's taking that space and he's going to curl into it. So now he's coming down with speed. He's not just kind of hanging out here, which makes him a lot easier to defend against. And this is really hard to defend as a defenseman or defender, because now he's coming at you with speed and you're kind of having to go at him. So two people going at each other, it's tough. You just got to play your angles. And that's why he's beating this guy. He has that speed. And now when you have this, I always say on the penalty kill is about anticipation and identifying constant 2-on-1s that you're in. So now Lindholm here is in a 2-on-1 with these two guys. So he needs to treat it like that. He needs to get kind of up here and take away the shooting angle. So he needs to treat it like that. And he needs to come up here and take away this passing angle that McDavid has and just kind of give him that bad angle shot. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, he just needs to treat this like a 2-on-1 and not be hanging out where he is. And that's what allows McDavid to walk in, because he didn't take that space away. And that all just kind of started with McDavid coming in on an angle of speed there. He's a really hard guy to defend against. We have another power play zone entry. Similar style. Edmonton really likes to do this, and Boston nails it again. And I just want to show you so you get another view of what it looks like. So McDavid's coming with speed, and we have basically these three guys here defending. And like I said before, these other forwards are flat-footed. You do have Draisaitl back here with a bit of speed, so that makes it a little more of a 2-on-3, but even still, he's hanging back quite a bit. So as a defender, you got to identify that, and you have to send a guy to pressure and make McDavid make a move in some direction or chip the puck. And the defender is doing exactly that. He's going to go at him, and even if McDavid gets around, you still have these two guys here, and they can match the speed now because McDavid will be slowed down from having to make a move. So watch. Hits him, and then the puck's through. Goalie gets it out of the zone. That is how you defend that power play zone entry. One of the best ways to defend against really fast skaters like McDavid is to just not even let them generate that speed in the first place. And McDavid generates a lot of his speed on the breakout and the zone entries. So the way to do that as a defenseman specifically is to try and mitigate that breakout or rush attempt by holding a good gap. And Boston does a good job here. They're kind of funneling to the boards, so that's a nice forecheck by them, which already, look, it's taking away McDavid's space. He doesn't really have that room to kind of wind it up like he tends to do. The only thing I'd like to see is Zadorov over here. I'd like to see him holding that gap a bit better. Fair enough, you're defending McDavid. I can only imagine how hard that is. So it is probably intimidating to maintain a good gap, or it's a challenge because you never know where his speed's going to come from. If Zadorov was holding this a bit tighter, you wouldn't have given the red line here to Hyman, and it would have forced a chip, and it would have completely diffused any type of zone entry from Edmonton. But instead, he gives it to him. Then it's a little more dangerous. McDavid and Edmonton have possession in your zone. Zadorov does a nice play here, and it's very subtle, but it's really crucial when you're playing against good players, but just defending in general. And it's all about foot and shoulder positioning when defending. So we have McDavid coming up here, and he's about to get the puck. And McDavid is really good at getting defenders to lunge, so he almost kind of baits you into thinking you can get the puck off him. And Zadorov doesn't take the bait. He just kind of stays his shoulder slightly behind McDavid, and his feet slightly behind McDavid. Not too much where he can get a jump on you, but you're just kind of going with him and not fully committing to a direction. And this doesn't allow, yeah, see, McDavid's kind of baiting him into lunging. He wants Zadorov to lunge, and then he's going to spin off because he realizes he's got this space down here. Zadorov does a good job. He doesn't take the bait, stays positioned. He's kind of just, he's angling. This is just textbook angling. He's angling McDavid up to this space. He's a lot less dangerous up here. Yeah, see how he's kind of just staying behind him? If he was a little more in front, McDavid is spinning right off you. He does a good job, gets a little physical at the end. Hit those good players every chance you get. You want to, throughout the game, train them that they're going to get hit every time they get the puck around you. And the more you do that, especially in playoffs, it builds up. And by game 3, game 4, they kind of have a little bit of PTSD to be around you. Boston's on the power play here, and Edmonton's about to get a shorthanded goal. McDavid's about to get a shorthanded goal. And it's a tough play. There's not a whole lot you can do. Like, shorthanded goals suck. So, I mean, as a defenseman against you, they suck. But I'll show you a little bit what Boston could have done. So Nugent Hopkins here is about to get full possession of the puck. And when you see that, even on the power play, you gotta kind of go into defensive mode when a guy has clear possession of the puck and is looking up ice, especially when you have McDavid on the ice breaking. So I would have liked to see McAvoy go into defensive mode. He's still kind of holding the boards, which to me is a sign he's in offensive power play mode because he's trying to block like a chip out or whatever. But you've got to identify McDavid's on the ice. Edmonton has full control of the puck and he's breaking. So you just got to forget about the puck, and he should be turning around here and just skating and being in defensive mode, skating back to his net, and he's got to get that body position on McDavid. But he's thinking like pick the pass, block the dump or something, gets him in trouble. So the thing you can learn from this is even on the power play, when the other team gets clear possession of the puck, you got to go into defensive mode a bit, especially when an elite player like this is on the ice. Edmonton's back on the power play. They had a lot this game, by the way. Not sure they're good or bad calls, but I'm not here to analyze that. But this is another example of how to defend that power play zone entry from Edmonton, and a lot of teams do this. So again, McDavid's coming in, and this forward's playing a little smarter now. He's letting himself have some speed, so it makes it a bit more threatening. But these two guys here, they're flat-footed. They're practically useless from a threatening perspective. So again, it's essentially a 2-on-4. So when you see that as a defender, defenseman, whatever, you want to send a guy, like I said earlier, to pressure that puck carrier. And Boston does a good job. So just watch. See that? Both those guys went at him. Then the other defenders hang back and wait to see what the kind of result is. If you just back in like that, you're basically just wasting that advantage you have. We've got Nugent Hopkins here carrying the puck up, and he dishes it to McDavid right here, okay? And I always say when I'm analyzing defensemen, this area is a tough place to be, especially when you have pressure on you up high. The reason is your shot angle is atrocious, and it's kind of a tough play down here. Usually the best option is to move it to the middle, but when you have really high pressure like this, so these guys here, this is a really tough spot, and you really gotta, as a defender, pounce on players in this area. So it's kind of like the reverse. When you see them in a tough spot like this, you have to give them no time. You have to jump on it because you've got to identify that they're kind of screwed, right? So McAvoy does a good job, and they're on him. Honestly, they could have been more aggressive too, but just identifying when players are in a tough situation and jumping on it is the way to do it. This play here shows how elite and intelligent Connor McDavid really is. He makes a play by identifying 3 steps ahead what's going to happen. So I'll show you what I mean. He picks the puck up, makes space for himself, which is already nice, and then he identifies Hyman here. And he also identifies Hyman has this space that he's about to skate into. And most players would throw a pass kind of off the far boards, chip, and Hyman could skate into it, which that in itself is a nice play. But McDavid is 3 steps ahead, and watch what he does. He makes the first pass, and then 2 more passes, and Hyman walks in with all that space. And that was just him basically predicting the future. There's a couple ways to defend a 3-on-2, and Boston actually does a decent job here. We have McDavid flying down, so that's intimidating. But Zadorov here, he has a great job. He's pressuring and not really letting them enter the zone easily, which I always love to see. And that makes McDavid have to make a pass. The only issue is Lindholm here is playing defense, and he doesn't necessarily play well. We got Zadorov taking a spill, but that's a tough little play. That's not how you do a 3-on-2. But we let it run here. And the issue that Lindholm has here is he should be treating this like a 2-on-1 because he doesn't quite have this back pressure there yet. You want to force that first guy with the puck, make the pass, and then you treat this like a 2-on-1, and you don't let the pass across. Instead, he's going to Nurse. I would like to see him kind of more in this area because that would give Nurse not a great shot. His angle's not great. The goalie definitely has the better odds there, and you're just taking away the pass. But instead, Lindholm goes to Nurse, and that's a pretty big scoring opportunity. So Zadorov played it well. Lindholm didn't. So that's it, guys. I hope you learned something from this. McDavid is so good and so hard to defend. He really uses his speed well, and he's really good at confusing defenders in the switches that I talked about. And I think that his speed, his intelligence, and his ability to manipulate the game with those attributes makes him so dangerous. And like I said, I've never played against McDavid, so I can only imagine how hard this game would have been to play against him. And this is just from my perspective looking through a TV here, but it's 10 times harder when you're on the ice against a player like this. So McAvoy, Zadorov in Boston, they still did a pretty solid job for what it's worth. So some things you can learn from this is when you are playing those really dangerous players, just be aware of you want to give them space to allow for those rotations with your teammates and defense partner, but you also don't want to give them too much space. So you just got to be aware of them constantly using the net and other players to pick you off. It's a tricky thing, and the more you play against players like this, the more you understand it and get better at it. But yeah, hopefully you don't have to defend against a Connor McDavid anytime soon. Or hopefully you do, I don't know. But yeah, I hope you guys learned something. And let me know in the comments below if there's someone you want me to analyze next or a matchup. I typically do full game breakdowns of the top NHL defensemen, and I'm trying to pass on my knowledge of defense to you guys so you can see the game a little bit deeper. But I'm open to doing more videos like this, so let me know. Hope you guys enjoyed.